Earl Grey hot.
Welcome to...
It was hot.
Okay. Well, welcome to the Picard Maneuver. This is live. You okay there? Good. Well, welcome to the Picard Maneuver. This is live. We just watched Star Trek Picard, episode 7, Nepenthe. We should have looked up how to pronounce that.
I think it's
Nepenthe?
I can't talk.
Okay, I'll keep talking then. Well, Nepenthe, it's a Greek term. It refers to a mythical Greek mythology drug that makes you forget all of your sorrows and troubles.
Trying again.
I did look it up quickly earlier, and it was a little different from what I thought. I had always associated with the Lotus Eaters in the Odyssey, which is this island of people who take this lotus drug that makes them forget everything and not worry about everything. And if you remember in the Odyssey, it's like a decade-long journey where he's going to all these islands, and each island has these different trials he's got to get through, and he can't get back to Ithaca, to where his wife is. And one option he has, and each island sort of has this option for him to like escape the journey and just take the easy way out and just relax on that island. And one of the things you could have done is just like taking the drugs and not worried about his troubles.
I should take that right now and forget that opening of this episode.
You still say
I know my throat. I literally inhaled Earl Grey hot in the beginning of the episode. So
I wonder if Picard ever did that.
man, if he did, my voice. We'll see when it returns to my normal voice. So, what do you think?
So, what did I think of the episode?
What's your first?
All right, I actually think this may be my favorite episode. I did like the episode. There are some parts about it that were sillier, as there's always been, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But the main sort of point of the episode, and this is a much longer episode. It was like 58 minutes. Mm-hmm. Like the previous episode was a little longer too.
I like the longer.
Yeah, the longer episodes are better. They definitely understand pacing. This was a sort of, again, a slower episode, a more thoughtful episode, which I would understand a critique in that we've only really had, the episode 6 was really the first episode where stuff was actually happening. We actually had some resolution and action that was going on. And it seems already, just on episode 7, we're back to just going mellow and thinking about stuff again. But at the same time, I think it actually is effective. It actually, to me, felt like good writing dealing with the sort of themes of authenticity and identity and childhood trauma and a lot of different things that actually, I think, was done subtly and well. So we'll talk about that. What did you think?
We will talk about that. Oh, it's pretty normal now. I liked it. Yeah, I liked it. I like also you're like listening. My voice is still not quite the same. I like the episode before this one. I think probably it's in my, top 3 or 4. There's a couple that were a little more weak, but definitely the longer length. I think the last one was also longer, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a few minutes longer. It was around like 52, or it was another 10 minutes longer, and this was even for longer.
So yeah, I think that automatically helps the pacing to feel a little less sped up, or it doesn't feel as quick. It doesn't feel like they're trying to just hit us with stuff and then move on. Mm-hmm. So yeah, overall I really liked it. I'm still not saying, I don't know which is my favorite episode. I might want to wait till like we've watched the whole season, and then maybe do a list, like a top 3 or top 5 or something. But I really liked it. Yeah, overall, as you said, there's some weak moments, but we can get into some of those. I mean, everything has weaknesses, right?
Yeah.
My throat, example.
Fair enough.
In this moment.
Well, let's get right into it. I got even more screenshots this time around to go through the episode. The screenshots are broken up. The episode started with another flashback scene. Mm-hmm. This time just 3 weeks earlier, so it was a flashback scene from a scene we saw in the second.
They're always starting with flashbacks.
Every episode, except the first episode, started with a flashback. Even the first episode was kind of a flashback. It was a dream. This was the shortest one, and it was kind of a cop-out or another sort of Agnes hand wave again. So let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it.
So it was 3 weeks ago. It was that scene where Commodore O shows up with her sunglasses and questions Agnes Girardi, and questions
Bodhi.
I've always said that. For some reason. Questions her. Remember that scene sort of cut off, and when we speculated when she realized what did I see, the reason she killed Maddox is that something happened in this scene, and it turns out it was just a mind meld, which I think is really problematic. First of all, it didn't convince us. I was expecting a flashback. They really got to do, and it wasn't as much. There's 2 points here. There's convincing the audience, and there's actually convincing her. And it didn't convince the audience whatsoever that her actions
This
after
was her
the scene,
motivation.
that her motivation made any sense whatsoever. It wasn't convincing at all. But it's hard to see whether it would be convincing to her. This is the first time we've seen mind melds used in a couple different ways. We've never seen mind melds used quite offensively this way.
Like a propaganda tool.
Yeah, so I don't think that she's brainwashed. Like, I don't think her brain is changed by that. I think it was just a way for Commodore O to communicate a lot of things quickly. But that's still a problematic use of a mind meld. And it sort of did feel like...
a plot device?
Very much a plot device from someone who wasn't really that familiar with Vulcans and mind melds, who just like, Vulcans have mind melds, that's what we'll do in that scene, and then we'll wrap it up.
Well, and also, she's a Vulcan, unless she's like some kind of hidden whatever, but like we're pretty sure she's a Vulcan.
Yeah.
The mind meld is a very like, almost like a religious thing for Vulcans. It's very like, just the way she does it and using it as a tool, and it just seemed, she was so forceful and quick with it too.
Nonchalant.
Yeah, she immediately was just like, whoosh, and then all of a sudden it happened really quick. They flashed these images, and then of course Girardi's just like, oh, that's terrible. But even that, if these images are so terrible, and I guess she kind of vomits after too, but like if they're so terrible that like this is going to cause her to like murder her like lover, I think even her reaction wasn't strong enough. Like it should be more than just kind of a few tears and a vomit. Like it should be like, what did you just show me? Like what is this? Like she was just kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, I got to kill someone now. I don't know.
Yeah, it just wasn't convincing.
No.
What's sort of interesting about the scene, though, is that during the mind meld, we had a bunch of super rapid shots. Now, what it looks like from the next time, we sometimes talk about the next time stuff. We usually don't. We usually try to talk about episodes by himself. But anyway, it looks like in the very next episode, episode 8, that the flashback at the start of the episode is going to be the scenes that we saw in the mind meld. And that is actually going to hopefully make sense. And then we'll actually fully understand what Agnes experienced. And then we'll understand the motivation.
That's the thing I was going to mention.
Buying Commodore O and stuff.
Is that watching the episode, if you watched it, those flashes happen quick. Like, so the stuff that Girardi's seeing. So I thought that's how she saw it. But we could just be assuming that, and maybe it's just giving us a glimpse into what Girardi saw. And it actually, she saw more of a full... a vision of what would happen.
I think the impact is that that's the initial feeling of what you have, because it's a sudden mind meld that she suddenly downloaded a bunch of memories to her, but then she has those memories and can reflect on them in detail. That's why Commodore O did that. So I did screenshots of all the shots. So there's some interesting stuff going on there. One of the shots I did only one of them I grabbed from the Next Time On, which just sort of explains one of the scenes that makes it sort of easier to see.
Yeah. Because they were really... So there's the mind meld. So this happened super quickly. This is not from this episode. This is from the...
So Commodore O was wearing a Starfleet uniform. It starts out with Commodore O, and she's in this circle of people. I think this one in time frame would have happened before the previous scene. This is the shot that was from the Next Time.
Cultish imagery.
So there's some sort of culty thing going here. Yeah.
Looks like they might be opening a gate of some sort.
Some sort of magical gate. Now, we do know that the technology around the Vulcan Stone of Gaul and things like that, they had sort of magical technology that probably isn't like magic, like Dungeons and Dragons magic, but is like Vulcan advanced technology where they focus their psychic energy onto like stones and stuff that scientifically makes sense somehow. So Vulcans have some technology like that.
Right.
It looks like it could be something that happened a long time ago. We don't know how old Commodore O is, but Vulcans can be 200, 300 years old.
So is it present? Is it past? Is it future? We don't know.
Yeah, well, presumably it's the past. But
okay, what else we got?
And then the previous scene is that something goes wrong, and we're still assuming these are Vulcans because Commodore O is a Vulcan.
You know what this could be? What was it called? The Conclave of 8?
Oh yeah.
But are there more than 8 of them?
There's definitely more than 8 of them.
I was like, maybe that's what this is. No, okay.
But yeah, the Conclave or whatever of 8 is definitely
like
something.
Protectors. But yeah, okay. So anyway, something goes wrong. There's an issue with this thing they're creating.
And then these are like flashes. We just get like still shots basically.
So then there's this.
So it's a planet that's being attacked. It's not Vulcan. Vulcan has a very distinctive, like, sandy dune look.
It's kind of an Earth-like planet. Now they're doing something with the stones.
Yeah, someone's
maybe
got a
killing
big
somebody with a stone. Oh, yeah, they've hit somebody with the stone. That's what happened.
No, I think it's the person with the stone has that.
Okay.
Well, it's the same shot, so the stone goes down, and then we see that.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm not like you see the sky. You see the line of the grass behind. It's the same person who's dropped the stone. It's just, but they've also been hit by a stone too.
Yeah, they've been hurt with something. So.
Yeah, and it's obviously it's a Vulcan. It could be like we're still questioning are these Vakvash somehow or Romulans? Or maybe maybe a couple of Vulcans are members of the Vakvash.
We don't. Well, I was just going to say we don't know that Commodore O is in Javash, so. Okay,
yeah, she's definitely an ally of the Javash and is motivated somehow by them. So this is person's stone. This could be, I don't know if this is in the same scene as the previous one. Then there's more destruction of a planet. Looks like probably the same planet as the previous scene. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Then there's I
didn't see this one before. That's intense.
Vulcan like tearing her face off like she's going crazy.
That's not Commodore O.
Is it Commodore O? I didn't when I first saw
tell
that.
Without the huge sunglasses. Well, anyway, but definitely. Sorry that we're like just cruising through these really quickly.
I think it could be Commodore O.
But does that not look like someone tearing their own face off?
Yeah, it looks like someone tearing their own face. We don't see anything more than just like that quick shot.
Okay, so let's move on.
But it looks like they're wearing this. It could be wearing those same robes.
I think it's the same robe. Oh, for sure. I think this is from that moment.
Then there's some sort of mass destruction of a city.
Yeah.
Another shot of that. Then someone shoots themselves in
that's a Romulan, isn't it? Look at the forehead.
It looks Romulan, and that's definitely a Romulan disruptor, like the Romulan disruptors we've seen.
Okay, and I'm still assuming these are some of the people that were standing around this rock formation.
It looks like it. Like
the hood, maybe.
Again, looks like they have that hood, but they're shooting themselves.
Or are they injecting knowledge into their mind?
Well, I just took one shot of it, but I do think it like in the next like moment.
Yeah, something terrible happened around those rocks that. Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I don't know, but I just think something terrible happened. Some of them died. Some of them ripped their faces off. It's like all of a sudden they saw maybe glimpses of this destruction, or they brought this destruction upon. I know that they've talked about Soji being the destroyer. Does it have something to do with her? I can't see how. It's very apocalyptic. And here's this planet that we saw. Like half of it's destroyed there. So something very.
So I think that's the same planet as the other stuff happening, although it no longer has the same explosions. And this one goes.
Oh, this one goes.
It goes completely gone.
Wow. Okay.
We see that as a glimpse of it, like completely going.
Okay. Yeah.
And I think that's the last.
That's some pretty. Okay. So that's some pretty intense stuff. And that's just most of those were flashed like this into Girardi's mind with the Mind Meld, correct?
Yeah, and you saw all of those scenes really fast.
Just didn't, yeah. So it's good.
Except for that one I added.
You took the time to pause them, so you're seeing it here first on this YouTube channel, exclusive. The image is explained,
except for in the episode.
Oh, I also wanted to mention, if I check my phone sometimes, you might think I'm like texting. Not that would be a bad thing, but I have all my notes written down on my phone, so I just wanted to. And then if people didn't catch that one moment, they're not going to know that that's what's going on. But hey, I explained it. So. That's the opening kind of.
Yeah, right? And I like it seems like we're gonna see that's the scene spread out and the opening of the next episode. So maybe it'll make more sense. But it looks like Vakvash.
Yeah.
Commodore O's there. They looked more Romulan they looked more Vulcan than Romulan to me. Mm-hmm. Of what we saw. We only saw a couple of them, and two of them might have been.
But I feel like there's definitely Romulans amongst them, though.
No, it makes a lot more sense of this like a Vakvash thing than the Vakvash, because the Vakvash are the only people who seem to know about this impending apocalypse that is true from the Romulan eschatology, mythology stuff, and that they have to actually deal with it. Mm. Presumably, they think it's being caused somehow by synths and.
Right.
I don't know. I suspect that it feels like something because of the robes and stuff that would have happened hundreds of years ago.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely some... Okay, so you think this is a flashback to something previous.
Yeah.
And not like a sign of things to come or like something that they do.
Well, I think it's a flashback of things previous, but maybe part of it is that they see this place. Like, that's a flash forward that they see somehow of the future using their... I guess... Although actually seeing the future is more magic than
doing flashbacks?
Than other magical I'm referring to that Gambit Part 1 and 2, that sort of Vulcan Stone of Gold stone thing that they had that could like focus negative emotions, and which they sort of explained because Vulcans are telepathic and proto-Vulcans are telepathic.
Right.
So I'm still thinking that somehow that's tied in there and that they're not going to retcon all of Star Trek to actually have the Force or magical powers in it. It's what
No, I don't think that's going to happen. But so probably next episode we'll find out some of this stuff. We'll at least reveal more of it to us. But there's some interesting imagery. The planet exploding almost looks like Romulus when Romulus exploded. Like it's the same idea of like this kind of almost the planet cracking into bits and then just blowing up.
But before that scene, there was the shots of like explosions, smaller explosions happening on the planet.
Yeah.
Like it was being attacked. And again, it wasn't Mars too, obviously.
And maybe we could do a theories video because I don't want to like we could go on probably for like an hour just theorizing because now I have some ideas of what I think might be happening, but let's just kind of move on in this episode. So
yeah, and it might not be interesting doing theories if they just flat out say what's going on at the start of the next episode, which hopefully they will anyway.
Well, theories are still interesting, my friend.
All right, so on the next few scenes, there's sort of three groups of scenes that are back on the Borg cube, and I put them all together.
Yeah, let's just go over the Borg cube.
They're disconnected from the main sort of plot, so let's focus on these.
Yeah, and just a reminder to everyone, the people left on the cube are basically Elnor and Hugh, and then Risso is still there, but Narek has left and is pursuing Rios.
Not yet.
We'll see.
So in the next scene, Risso,
yes,
who's the evil sister, has captured
the evil sister
has captured Hugh, and she has a lineup of ex-Borgs, and she's like, they start like shooting them down and saying like, where's Picard and Daj gone to?
Yeah, trying to use them as leverage.
And she ends up saying, well, he was not telling us anything, we'll kill them all. And then she shoots out like, it was like 8 or something.
Enough of them to kind of be like,
yeah, just straight out of
jerk.
And then Hugh doesn't spill the beans. He doesn't explain where they've gone. All he says is like, they've gone. They're not here anymore. Which shows the character that Hugh's a good guy. He's honorable, and he knew that she was probably going to kill people anyway. And they didn't really even need to say that because in the next scene, we see Narek getting into this, they call it a snakehead scout vessel.
Oh, so you're right, yeah. So he hadn't left yet. But yeah, he's getting into this.
He gets in that and he lives. And then they can follow them anyway, so it's like they know where they're going to go. It's not like... that's not really an immediate problem right now. But what's a bigger problem with this scene is, first of all, where the heck is Elnor?
Right, because he was with Hugh the last episode.
He was with Hugh last we saw. Somehow she's captured him. And
Elnor's somewhere else, yeah. So when she captured
Hugh... And then she's captured him, put him in his place, gotten a big lineup of ex-Borgs to kill, which is a pretty huge thing. She just started killing people now.
Right. Which I think she's just been kind of waiting to do.
Yeah. Well, she's clearly an evil character, but plot-wise, and she's like threatening him.
Well, I also mentioned that, when we first met her, she was posing as Starfleet, and now it seems like they've thrown that out the window. They haven't returned to kind of anyone being like Lieutenant, or what was she? Was she a lieutenant?
Yeah, I think they made a point of calling her Lieutenant
Risso. Like nobody's been.
And we've been calling her Risso. Obviously, isn't her real name. We've just been calling her Risso.
Yeah.
The name we had when
she would have a Romulan name, but Lieutenant Risso, are you going to report to your post or something? Where are the people she works with in Starfleet that are probably wondering where?
Is she even really undercover in Starfleet, or is that just the uniform she wore when she wanted to go talk to Commodore?
I have no idea. But anyway, so that's
at the time it felt like she was going to be in the Starfleet uniform more often, and we'd see her kind of maybe even communicate with Picard.
That's what I thought too. Yeah, so maybe that's why.
Instead, what we got those series of scenes of her and her brother. Remember those scenes I always make fun of? We had 3 of them, and then the 4th
where she gets progressively more evil.
But if you look at what she wears in those scenes, she gradually she has a Starfleet uniform. She looks human first. Then she wears sort of this
the ears.
Then she gets her real ears, but then she's if I remember correctly, she was wearing like a cloak and something like that. And so each scene she sort of looks more and more different, more and more aggressive or sexier or something. So I think there's a reason why they sort of had her character dressed differently in each of those scenes.
Well, they've definitely tried to show her progress.
And then it ends up, I don't know if we have a shot of this interesting sort of neck thing and neck collar that they have her wearing in these scenes. And I think it was the same thing she was wearing that scene. Remember that she was watching the yoga? Right. Anyway, so she threatens him and...
Poor Hugh. This scene made me really
And then they
sad.
just leave him.
And then they just leave him, and Elnor shows up.
Elnor shows up.
Yeah. Yeah, she
So that
walks
doesn't
away.
make a lot of sense to me.
No, it's a little lazy. It's a little lazy.
It's sort of like they had some glimpses of things they wanted to do, didn't know how to get between the scenes, so they just showed them. And there's no like logical thing. Elnor's not there. Elnor is there.
Now he is there.
And then
after Hugh's already been screwed, so he's kind of like, you see in this image, like Hugh's just like completely defeated, and Elnor's like,
they just killed
what
him.
did I miss, bro? What did I miss?
And he killed him, but he's been captured. He betrayed them, I guess, in their eyes at least. At least this particular Tal Shiar.
Well, he feels that way.
And but then they go. They just leave him.
They leave him.
So then
can show up.
And then a later scene, Hugh and Elnor are just walking through the Borg cube, and then Hugh's like, "Man, it really sucks that she just murdered a dozen of my friends. We gotta do something about this. We gotta take this Borg cube back and get rid of these Romulans."
Mm-hmm. That's the natural progression of things to do.
And then what?
She shows up and she's like, "Now that you said that, I can kill you." Literally, that's what she said.
Literally, that's what she said.
Yeah.
Which doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, Steven just commented on that.
First of all, and she goes, "Didn't you know we'd be listening to you and watching you?"
Yeah.
Of course you would know that. We've seen him like use the camera shots. We know that we're on the Borg cube of Romulan and stuff where everything everyone does is recorded.
Oh, and she walks out of smoke in this moment.
Yeah,
sorry to interrupt you, but she literally walks out of smoke. Like, what's the
super
smoke
music
doing?
video. And there's even like two like backup dancers that come up behind it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a ridiculous scene, but just the logic of it doesn't make any sense. Of course he knew that. Why is it like suddenly like, oh, you said you're angry. Now that you said you're angry, you don't like Romulans anymore because I just killed a bunch of your friends. Haha, got you. I can kill you now.
The treaty is off.
That was why I left you alone and then came back immediately because I was watching you. Because they were like the same. It's not like she beamed in or anything. It didn't make any sense whatsoever. Oh, and there's her backup.
There's the backup dancer, yeah.
And the awesome lighting, which actually I think is cool. It's a Borg cube. I'm
okay with it.
The lighting and smoke is kind of neat. Anyway, so they get into a big fight. First, they take out the Romulan disruptors and shoot Elnor, and Elnor's jumping around with a sword, slashing everyone. He takes down the backup guys, the backup dancers pretty fast.
Easily, yeah.
And then she's all like, "This is not how the Zhat Vash fights the Kowat Malat." So yeah, I guess you spell those words.
Yeah, and until now we didn't know that, and we would have probably pronounced it wrong. So Kowat Malat is the Romulan kind of where he was with the convent of women.
Absolute candor.
Absolute candor, yeah.
Which is sort of interesting because obviously the Tal Shiar and then the Vat Vash, or the super secret Tal Shiar, is sort of they have this contrast with
right
the nuns.
They're kind of and then Elnor being like kind of the well-trained dude who can fight from that place, and Risso being like the Zhat Vash representative of like a tough member of the Zhat Vash. So then they have their little face-off.
So she challenges him on that ground, and then he puts his knife away, and she puts her disruptor just on her side. And so they just do a little hand-to-hand combat like, very quickly. And very quickly she takes out some smaller knives. Versions of the same knife, a bigger version. So there's a bigger knife she used at the neck of Hugh in the previous scene. Mm-hmm. And she has two smaller versions of it that she takes out.
She got a few knives on her.
And
she has a utility belt.
A utility belt, which I guess makes sense for her character.
Sure.
And basically...
Oh yeah, that moment was ridiculous. But anyway,
another shot. She basically then throws it, hits Hugh in the neck.
While she's fighting,
Elnor runs over to Hugh and's like, "Hugh got killed," picks up the knife, throws it back at her. She beams right out.
She literally beams mid-knife throw. So the knife is flying at her.
She's about to shoot the disruptor too.
So I don't know if someone's controlling this transporter, but regardless, it's like I've never seen it happen. I mean, O'Brien was pretty good with transporters, but I don't see O'Brien being like, "Gotcha."
That's even better than O'Brien. The only other time I've seen transporter that like quick, efficient was in the first episode. Remember when those Vash assassins?
Yes, they were in midair. They were being transported,
and they were being kicked over the stairs in midair. They were being.
They'd like fall in that transport.
So maybe Vash always have people fall watching them. They're ready to transport them just when they need it.
Maybe they have heart rate transporters. Like if the heart rate goes too high, it just immediately transports them.
Some sort of computer automated transport to get out of there.
Oh, Steve said could have a proximity detector transporter. So maybe she just like knew where to stand. Whatever, Steve.
No, it makes sense. Good job, Steve.
No, it does. Good, makes sense.
Is he watching us live?
Yeah, he's watching live. What a guy, huh?
So anyway, there's a moment where he was dying.
Our beloved Hugh.
So we'll talk maybe a bit, but he does say a couple interesting things. He says right away, Elnor, go back to the Queen's chamber. That's their secret place to get off of here.
Yeah.
And then he says, but the Queen's chamber what's that the Voyager referencing? What they call? I forget what it's called, but the big super transporter thing that can go thousands of light years. You need an X-Borg to turn that on. He drops that sort of negative goal. He needs an X-Borg to help him, and then he dies.
Yeah, so this is another character that we brought in for maybe an episode, 2 episodes. I think Hugh had 3 episodes.
Correct.
And they've killed him off. And it feels a little bit like a little bit of fan service, a little bit of like bringing characters in to anchor them in like, the original storylines and things, and then just being like, well, we don't need them anymore. So I don't really know why Hugh had to die. I still don't really know why Maddox had to die. Like, there's characters that could have left the plot and not really. It's almost like the writers are like, if we don't need to use them anymore, they have to die, right?
Well, more than that, Maddox had to die, and his death was literally an Agnes hand-waving him to death, because we didn't want to have more explanation from him, because they didn't have any more explanation for why he created Daj and Soji.
Which is
the timeline of creating Daj and Soji, his motivation, his actual motivation for all the stuff he did. They weren't ready to explain that, or didn't have an explanation for that. So they just had him say a few quick things that like got Picard to the next scene, and then just quickly had him killed off by Agnes hand waving.
Anyway,
Hugh. I mean, I think it makes sense for Hugh's arc for him to sacrifice himself to save some X-Borg.
But it was a knife to the neck, like.
But
randomly.
He didn't do that. He some of that was touched on in the first scene he was in, but he didn't die in that scene.
Yeah.
It was just a throwaway knife that he was distracted. He wasn't even he was looking over, and then she just threw a knife.
Yeah, it caught me off guard because I was like, wait, where did that knife come from?
It seemed poorly done. It seemed awkwardly done. It didn't seem worth up it for the character. It would have been so cool if he just stayed around. Whatever happens with Elnor, somehow he beams off and then meets the crew up again somehow, I assume, in the next episode. But he could leave, and then Hugh could say, no, I can't go with you. I have to stay here, presumably with 7 and 9. I think the implication 7 and 9 is coming up, and we'll talk about that in the next scene quickly. But basically, he stays behind with 7 and 9 and is like, we got to do something to protect these XPs here.
Yeah,
and he's
dedicated
I can do it. And then that's the last we see of him, at least for the season. And then we're like, what did he do? Did he start a whole revolution of the XBs? How did he save the XBs? Did he fight back against the Romulans? The Romulans are in that great position right now. Maybe he could do something.
Yeah.
I don't know. They do have throwaway lines from a couple previous episodes where they make it clear. He mentioned something about how he has Federation citizenships, unlike the other X-Borg, so he has more freedom than the rest of them. Which presumably
but he would have fought for that.
Is the reason
who's going to fight for him now?
I think is supposedly the reason why she couldn't kill him until he said he didn't like Romulans anymore.
Okay. So anyway, he's gone.
But there's one more scene that we have Elnor after. I'm pretty sure he goes. It's not clear, but I think he goes. He goes back to the Queen's chamber. He finds the calling card that 7 of 9 left behind and gave to Picard.
Yeah, and basically
I don't remember Picard giving that to Elnor or leaving it behind in the Queen's chamber.
He may have. I don't remember it, but he may have, and I'm pretty sure.
Well, he must have.
But we'll have to go back. It's there. That's all we need to worry about. I
don't remember, because I watched those scenes. I watched the previous episode's Queen's Chamber beam out scene twice, and pretty close, and I don't remember him doing it.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that happened, but
either way, he's got it. He presses the button, and you see Fenris SOS initiated. So 7 of 9's coming back in the next scene.
He's putting out a distress call to 7 of 9, and we're likely. I don't know, how close she is to Fenris, I guess. No, she's a Fenris Ranger, right? So is this to all the Fenris Rangers or just to 7 of 9?
It's not clear from that. But the only Fenris Ranger we've met is 7 of 9.
Maybe they'll all show up.
I think it's we have a few. We're introduced to a few new Fenris
Rangers. The wrong one shows up and he's like, I was looking for 7 of 9, and he's like, well, you got me, kid. And then we just have this new cool character that can smell lies. Anyway, so what do we? So
I think that's all we've really got to talk about.
The Borg stuff? Okay, cool.
So the next stuff right away is getting right into. So the rest of the episode, we're on to a planet of where Soji and Picard goes,
which is Nepenthe, which is the name of the episode.
So let's see where that goes to, and there's a lot there. Join us for our journey through this episode. So as soon as they beam in, there's a character that shows up with bow and arrow.
Bow and arrow. And so you had seen the episode before me. In this moment, I was kind of like, this is an odd planet with an odd alien race that has arrows. It's not something that Star Trek hasn't done before, to have a planet full of maybe like people who are their weapons
we assumed
are.
she was a local.
I did at the time, yeah. And then, but the way Picard was acting with her, and then suddenly it's like there's a friendliness between them. I thought, who the heck is this? And I think I was saying to you, wait, has Picard been to this planet before?
Right.
Totally wasn't putting together where he was.
So I had known that Riker was in this episode, so I put it together because I knew.
When I was talking to Steve, was mentioning he saw in the opening credits the name Marina Sirtis and Jonathan Frakes, probably. Mm-hmm. I didn't notice that, so I kind of wasn't realizing this was the Riker and Troy episode. So, of course, when it happened, I was like, "How did I not pick up on that?" And there we have it.
We find out that this is Riker and Troy's daughter, Kestra, and she mentions that she knew Data, and then that's how. And then she sort of realizes, "Hey, you must be an android to."
Right, there was that moment. And Picard
and then,
says, like Data or something, and there's this kind of moment where Soji looks distraught and kind of
that's what the entire the main arc of this episode is, her on this planet with the Riker Troy family dealing with
trust, dealing with identity, home, being real, being fake.
So do you want to go through the scenes maybe pretty fast, and then we'll stop and talk more about it?
Sure, yeah. Let's just kind of, and if there's something we need to talk about, we can stop. But I mean, there's Troy.
Well, there's a lot of overhauling arcs and themes that we can talk about.
I loved the setting. I loved their home. I thought it was beautiful. I loved the idea that this is where Troy and Riker are kind of. I guess Riker's not technically retired. He said he was
on reserve,
but but this is their home. I kind of like that.
And it seems like they've been here for quite a while. Like,
it felt warm. It felt it's a beautiful location.
It was after the 14 years ago when they banned the androids, but I think they've been here for like a decade. Yeah, because as we learn about, they had another son who died. So we have another sort of reunion with some characters who are happy to see Picard, like Hugh, which I like. And I think I mentioned this before. I don't know if it was on camera or not, but the scenery of where they're at reminded me a lot of Kirk's cabin in Star Trek Generations.
Yeah, absolutely. That's true.
I don't think it was sort of in the forest, and there's sort of this assumption that the dream place for a Starfleet officer who's out in space to grow old is someplace that's a lot more grounded with nature. Sure. And that's sort of what we've got here.
I think it makes sense.
So they're then
these moments were great.
Riker.
I mean, anyone who's watched TNG, especially watched it kind of religiously, like I know we have, these characters became like family, so seeing them interact with each other really was amazing. Like I loved it. I loved seeing them.
And more than just like sort of fan nostalgia and stuff, there was a lot of moments, particularly when he first met Troy and when he first met Riker, where both Troy and Riker immediately sort of, without having to talk about anything, recognized that he was in danger and what type of stuff was going. And Riker infers a lot of stuff about like how it's the Tal Shiar is after them, the Romulans are after them, and stuff like that. And they didn't even have to like say it out. There wasn't like a bunch of exposition. They could just sort of look at see each other and talk, and obviously you imply Troy's a little empathetic and stuff.
Of course, yeah, she's an empath,
but us as a viewer also sort of got it, just them looking at each other, and it was sort of done well.
It was done well. Yeah, it was
good writing, good acting, subtle. And
so there's that moment. You've got some, like you said, some dialogue where Riker's picking up on something going on, like you're in trouble.
He turns on the shields, and
I loved that moment. Yeah, so Riker says, and at first I thought it was almost a joke. But so Picard, as soon as he says, "You're in trouble, aren't you?" and Picard's kind of like doesn't deny it, he immediately says, "Shields up, perimeter." What was it? Perimeter scan engaged or something.
Yeah. So,
and at first I was like, "He's just messing with Picard," but no. Then you see you see a cool thing, and I'm like, "Oh dang!" And I thought, well, of course, he's an ex-Starfleet officer. He's got tons of experience with. So many things. So he would outfit his
and he says something about we've had the trouble with the local.
Something's been going on. Yeah. So yeah, I liked that. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, and then he says, "What was the anti-cloaking scanner?"
Then he says that because I guess he's picking up on. I don't know if Picard says something about Romulans or
he says you better turn on anti-cloaking scanners. He said, "Why the Romulans?"
Yeah. So he's got anti-cloaking technology or technology it can pick up on cloaked.
Which Data, of course, invented with I forget what it's called.
Anyway, it's there. It's possible. So let's move on. What do we got? Okay, so this is
So, what's interesting about these scenes is that Soji and Picard sort of split up right away. Soji sort of goes off with their daughter, Kestra, and sort of talks in it looks like a guest room with bunk beds, and he sort of hangs
out with Riker.
He hangs out with Riker mostly, but Troy's like, you need to take a nap, obviously.
Yeah.
There's some moments that
I got to mention something real quick. Actually, look at this in the map in the background. I'm curious about that map. But one thing that I found interesting was that they're very concerned about Kestra and her safety because of one of their children has already died. Mm-hmm. But then they're okay with Kestra spending time with an unknown android that Picard just showed up with. And I know, like, you could argue, well, she's a descendant of Data. They're like best friends with Data. Also, Riker and Troy trust Picard, so they would trust it. But Picard doesn't. He just met Soji. He doesn't know that she's not all of a sudden gonna freak out and like. Anyway, I was kind of like, why would they leave their child with this android that they're not really sure about, but they're saying they really want to protect her? And even Picard himself feels very protective of Riker and Troy. That's something that happens a lot in this episode, where Picard keeps trying to protect them. Anyway, we can move forward, but that was something I thought was really weird.
To build on that sort of fits into a scene that comes up. But basically, there's a moment between the daughter and Soji. They connect, and it's a very interesting sort of contrast, because we first see Kestra, who's a child who's sort of dressed up as this wild girl of the woods, who's like she's in sort of a child's imaginary world, contrasted with the non-realness of Soji, that she sort of realized all of her memories and everything she's known about herself was wrong. She's not real, as Narek said in the previous.
And really, episode. Soji, like Kestra, is a child. Soji's only really 3 years old. She doesn't really know who she is. She's kind of learning as a child, just like Kestra.
Yeah, and there's a line where she says, "I'm only 3 years old," sort of in this. So I think that's what they've settled on, the time frame, is that she was created 3 years ago, and that all of her childlike. The image of her as a child is a completely fabricated dream. Now, we do touch on their dead son, Thad, who would have been 18 a week ago, something like that. And in a later scene, we learn how he died. Basically, he had some sort of degenerative disease, Menderes neuroscoposis. I said that ridiculously, but basically it's a disease that would have had a cure with a positronic matrix, but all positronic matrices were banned.
You gotta cut to me so you can see what I'm doing.
Were banned because of the of the ban on synths.
Yeah, that moment. I don't know. I guess to me, I was like, not message to the writers. If you're watching, writers of Star Trek,
and they're watching.
Okay, so for all you writers who are watching, not everything has to be connected to everything else. Some things can just happen and drive characters forward because of motivation, emotionally. So if what's his name again? The son?
Thad.
Thad. So if he had died, and in Riker and Troy were sad because of it, and it was connected, to how they feel right now, that would have been enough. Like, to me, when they then connected it to the synth thing, and they were like, he would have been saved if synths hadn't been outlawed. I was like, really? You're going to try to connect it? Like, it just felt like such a stretch. It's like...
Yeah, it doesn't really add up for...
No.
They called it
The disease was silicone-based?
A silicone-based disease, but it doesn't really make any sense. It's super awkward. And it would have worked just as well if he had just had a degenerate disease. They went to this planet because it's supposed to be a very healthy, natural planet that would be good for him. And obviously he liked it before he died. And he just had a degenerate disease that they couldn't cure, and they had to deal with that. Like, that would have worked just as well. The only sort of thing they get out of it is, there's a scene that cuts back to... I want to sort of talk about it. But I do have a screenshot of that scene, but it's a couple scenes later. But basically, Troy, they're talking about it over the tomato. And then basically...
Tomato.
Troy says, see, real is so much better. Sometimes you...
that's what Soji says.
Sorry, that's what Soji says. And then she says, sometimes synth is better. Sometimes you need
that. So they tried to bring it full circle when she eats the tomato, because she's like, what is that? I've only eaten replicated food. And she bites into the tomato, and of course, Soji sees this as a moment to show, real, because it tastes
contrast
so much.
Authenticity with fake and reality.
Which is basically the theme of the whole episode. And then Troy says, what's her reason for saying no? Sometimes synthetic is better.
That's
Because of the death of the sun,
of the positronic matrix that they didn't have access to.
Right. So sure, but I guess overall, I just think they didn't need everything to connect in such a nice little bow where you're like, this present's wrapped a little too delicately. It almost feels like, is there like something sketchy inside? I'm sure.
All right. So the screenshots, I do have some of the shots back on the ship.
Yeah, we were cutting back and forth to the ship. So.
No, actually, I don't have any more screenshots from this shot because nothing really interesting happens. This is just the one where Agnes is acting all sketchy, and then and then she's like, "What's wrong? Let's go eat some cake." That's all that happens.
Let's go eat some cake, which literally was a thing that happened. Yeah.
All right, then we're back to
okay,
Riker.
let's go back to Riker Picard.
Riker and Picard, they're making
wood oven fried, fire cooked pizza.
Yeah.
That's it. Fire. What is it called? Fired something pizza.
Wood fired pizza.
Wood fired pizza.
Wood fired pizza.
I see.
And he's basically just like, man, trust us, we can help you.
Here's the thing. Yeah, just to stick to that for a second. I like that Riker has this like fancy way he likes to make pizza, and he's making it for his family. To me, that adds depth to where
and we
Riker.
know he's a cook. We know that's what Riker would do.
And he's a father. He's trying to he wants to keep his family happy. He's got this thing.
Remember, his daughter had hunted the some sort of rabbit that had partially poisoned, and then he immediately makes it into sausage. That was ambiguous to me, but either way, he's using it to make the pizza.
I want to get his recipe for that. But yeah, he's making this pizza. I don't know. I to me, it was very fatherly. It was very like kind of a relaxed thing that he's learned to enjoy on this new planet. I didn't mind that. I guess I don't see this wood-fired pizza as this weird like hipster trend or something. I think it's just a way to make pizza.
Yeah, it's legit.
It's legit.
There's one line in here that says there's a point where he talks about how Picard does, because at this point Picard's not telling him really what's wrong and what's going on.
Say it.
Riker doesn't get it. So he does classic Picard arrogance.
Yeah, and I just wanted, so Mac Murray and Mac M on YouTube, I think it's Mac Murray, isn't it? Hopefully I got your name right.
Hey, Mac.
Mentioned that there's such a theme of Picard's arrogance in this series, even from the legacy characters. It almost felt like Troy had malice towards Soji in that tomato scene right until the end. So these are interesting things. I don't know that I picked up on the malice.
Well, I think we have shots from that just coming up right after this, so we can...
But yeah, I agree. So Tim just mentioned that, the arrogance of Picard and how his arrogance is almost getting in the way of how he's relating to everyone.
And he's not just willing to give up and say, hey, I need help here.
Yeah, he's just
I'm
protecting you. I'm not.
And Riker sort of figures out what's going on, and there's sort of a strong moment there.
So let's go.
And then Soji comes over.
There's the head tilt.
We get a head tilt, and Riker sees that, so he immediately recognizes Data. And it's the same. Remember, we saw that in a few episodes ago with Narek when they were sliding around on.
I remember the head tilt for sure. This is head tilt number 2.
And then she meets Riker, and Riker's cool. And then Troy's like, let's go off and have a tomato. I'll show you or actually, I think originally it's the daughter, Kestra.
So is this the scene?
The daughter, Kestra, is like, hey, let's go look at the farm. What are they going to farm? The plants.
I don't remember that part.
No, it's just when they're running up. She's like, let's go see the vegetables or whatever.
Okay, but did we skip in stills, because maybe we don't have more stills with this, the moment where Picard gets almost like weird with Soji and says,
no, that's after.
Okay. So I want to get to that. Here we go.
She eats the tomato with
There's the tomato scene. Yeah, we kind of already talked about it.
Then Kestra sort of runs off, and there's this, like you were just talking about, there's a contrast between the reality of it and she's never had real food before. She's always only had replicated food before, which is not a theme we've sort of touched on before.
Sure.
And then there's sort of a one-on-one moment where between just Troy and Soji, where Soji somewhat unloads about everything.
Yes,
and says
what she's gone through,
and then like
Narek,
everything I thought, and which is she's gone through quite a lot. She's not only like everything she thought about herself is fake. All of her memories are wrong. All of her family doesn't actually exist. The one guy that she thought she could trust that was going through this had just tried to kill her.
Yeah, just wanted to get information and decided that.
That is super traumatic.
Yeah,
and
so she doesn't trust anyone.
And she's even point. Even you people acting so nice to me at this point.
She doesn't trust that, yeah.
Is like kind of how Narek was asking me. I'm not like programmed right now not to.
She actually said, I think that makes me trust you less, the fact that you're being kind to me. And I do agree that I completely understand where she's at there. I think that emotional arc for her makes complete sense.
I 100% agree with that arc. I think it makes sense. And even more so, because she says at one point, like, I don't think any of this is real. I don't think any of you people are real.
Yeah.
And that is a perfectly rational thing to think. We've seen several situations where, and sometimes it's Section 31, but particularly the Tal Shiar and the Romulans have brainwashed people. Entire episodes have been on holodecks that were controlled by Romulans that were just trying to get information out of them. We've seen that sort of subverted a little bit with Section 31, and O'Brien and Bashir sort of do that too. But we've seen, like, that's something that the Tal Shiar, they do. They put you, they brainwash you and put you on holodecks and holodecks within holodecks within holodecks.
Yeah.
And like, if there was still information that the Tal Shiar thought they needed from her, creating this situation and with these characters so that she feels that trust to say everything is exactly the type of thing that the Romulans would do. So her being fundamentally skeptical of even her existence and everyone else around them existence, to me, makes perfect sense. It makes sense.
I want a quick note. She seemed to be calling Narek Narc, or like Narc.
Yeah.
Like a very quick, and not that matters too much, but I noticed that.
I think I noticed that in a few, when she was talking
it was
to
like
him
Narc
before, too, in previous episodes.
So it seems like names sometimes are pronounced, maybe we're just saying it wrong. But what happens next was the thing. So her motivation at this point makes complete sense. I think her character's confused, upset, doesn't trust anyone. I think I get that. What happened next, I didn't really get. This is the part that I was like, really? Like,
so Picard sort of hears her being skeptical about, like, them here, like everything existed.
And he says, so he comes up because she's saying, right before he comes up, she says, I don't trust Picard. I don't trust you. I don't trust, because I don't know if maybe you want to harm me. And he comes up and says basically, oh, yes, we want to kill you and experiment on you. Yes, that's what
we torture,
want. And torture you. Really. Yeah, of course, that's what we want to do. That's my Picard impression. So he immediately says this. She's vulnerable. He's been trying to protect her. He accidentally allowed Daj to die. He feels responsible. What's his motivation in this scene to come up and be like almost like sarcastic and super cold and insensitive to her? Like, Picard in TNG, yes, he could kind of be weird with kids sometimes. He'd say, shut up, Wesley. He'd be very blunt. But he never lacked the ability to understand where a person's emotions were at. He could usually at least pick up on another person's emotions and treat them accordingly. And in this moment, he seems completely blind to where she's at and just acts super weird, and then is blindsided by her. She pushes him and then walks away, and I guess they're trying to do maybe like father-daughter moment, which I get. And of course, like super synth strength, she like pushes him, and then he's like, I guess I should be lucky that I only got a push, because he realizes that probably her angry could kill him easily. Anyway, I thought that was weird.
Yeah, and you were saying when we were talking about just when we were watching that the scene would have worked just as well if he didn't say anything so ridiculous and jerky. And he just came over and started talking with them about, let's eat some food. And she was just...
Then he's insensitive in that way.
Yeah, but because we didn't know what they were talking about.
Right.
And she just sort of like... She sort of reacts the same way to him.
Reacts in that he's not picking up on how much she's been through. And then you have Troy's response to that being, you need to understand, Picard, what this...
Yeah, the same thing as she should.
Same thing, but just have maybe what Picard did not be so off-color and weird. Like, he literally, it'd be like if you said, like, you know, Joel, I don't know if... and I said, like, oh, yeah, I'm going to, like, punch you and hurt you.
Like, yeah, it was... I think... Well, first of all, Picard didn't know anything really about Narek or what actually just happened to her. So Picard is still ignorant of all that stuff. They haven't really had a one-on-one talking about what just went on. They just ran into each other when she was on the run and then jumped through this transporter thing and we're here. So he doesn't actually know any of that backstory.
But he does know at least the trauma she's been through as far as... Yeah. And that was my point. Like, you're right. He doesn't know about Narek. He doesn't know about that. But he doesn't need to know about that to be sensitive to this daughter of his best friend who sacrifices life for him. And in this moment to come up and just be like, yes, you're right. Of course, we want to torture you and sacrifice you and whatever and pull your hair. I don't know.
And
it's what?
This episode, a big part of this episode seems to really be the contrast between Picard and the way he acts with people and how it would have been if it was like a one-on-one between Picard and her. If they just went to a planet with no one on it, versus just how Troy and Riker react with her. Mm-hmm. Which, particularly Troy, of course, which is a lot more empathetic and a lot better.
There's the look of death from Soji being like, "You're being insensitive, Dad."
And from Troy. Oh
yeah, they both are like.
Oh, I heard that the wig that Marina Sirtis is wearing in this episode is the same wig as from Star Trek Nemesis.
Oh, wow. It was in storage.
Yeah, if you remember... I
like it.
In the first season of TNG, her and Dr. Crusher had their own hair. But then after the first season, they always wore wigs for some reason.
Okay, I did not know that. You learned it
never
here.
noticed that?
I didn't know it was wigs. No.
Yeah.
Now, also, Picard's wig is the same one he wore in also.
Yep.
Anyway, so moving on.
So then we come back to the cake eating.
We come back to the cake eating.
And then she just starts crying.
Let's just go quickly through this stuff.
Yeah, well, I don't have many shots from it. It's not.
Basically, the issue is that Agnes is clearly dealing with her remorse for what she did, her wanting to like tell everyone what's really going on. She wasn't emotionally prepared for this journey. She just was mind melded into it, I guess.
Hand waved into it more.
And now she's trying to cake her way out of it, and it's not working. So she vomits, and there's lots of stress, and the EMH shows up because we were saying what's gonna happen.
That's I think in a later scene.
Okay. Anyway,
I think that's all we got. Basically, that's.
I also have a comment about this. We'll see what does Mac and Steve and everyone watching think of this. I found that Raffi for one moment, Raffi seemed. I was like, oh, I'm liking where her character's going with this. She started to seem like. Skeptical of Agnes, and kind of I thought her character was going to go to a place of actually picking up on Agnes being a mole or a spy, and I was like, cool, like Raffi's actually hurt because she's been this weird defensive character throughout this episode so far, and I haven't really liked because it's been kind of two-dimensional. But in this moment, it actually could have gotten some traction because she's right about Agnes. She would be right about it, but then suddenly it takes this turn where I thought she was skeptical. To her being like, oh, come with Mama Raffi. Mama Raffi's going to take care of you and get you some cake. And then I was like, wait, what? I didn't see that coming. I don't know.
And until like most of that scene, it implies that Raffi thinks that Agnes has sort of like a very young sort of obsession or adoration. I can't think of the word right now for Rios. That she's sad about Rios because she picked up on some sort of relationship going on between the two of them.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh wait, this isn't about Rios. This is about Maddox, isn't it? And
that's true.
That's all. And then like that's all she really seems to get out. So she seems to be completely ignorant about.
Mac just made a really good point, which I actually think I like because I was saying about Picard. Why was he so ignorant to like what she was going through? And he said, I think it's more to highlight Picard's sense of his own inherent trustworthiness. He's never been in a position where people aren't required to follow his lead and be trained to implicitly trust. I think that's so. He maybe doesn't have a great understanding of his own how he comes across to others, and he's never been in a position where someone actually didn't just implicitly trust him.
And
so that's a good point. I like that.
And actually, Riker even says that. I think at one point he says, "We're not on a Starfleet." She says something to the point along the lines of, "We're not on a Starfleet ship anymore. You're not the captain anymore." When he talks about how he's being kind of classic Picard era.
So Mac's talking about how the theme of the series being what happens when someone who is in a position loses their position and no longer has this manufactured respect, which interesting.
That's very good. And more than that, a sort of manufactured identity.
There you go.
Picard outside of Starfleet, like an android who's suddenly realized that all of her memories are false.
Yeah, what is your identity?
They no longer have an authentic identity, so they have.
This is getting good, guys. I like this interaction. So thanks for the comments, Max and Steve, and also John. Appreciate you guys watching, and anyone else who's watching. So, we're waving. It's like we're in like some kind of ship going by. What's next? What do we got?
So, then we're back. And then at the end, we didn't mention, but at the end of the Riker says something along the line of, "Let's go eat dinner. Let's have some pizza and treat it like it's the ready room." Or no, sorry, not the ready room, the conference room.
He didn't say ready room? I thought he did. Anyway, I wanted you to take a still of this image because I thought, why? I think this is the only reason we have this image. I mean, of course they're eating together. Why does this table have so many dang candles?
Do you think they're real candles or they're some sort of futuristic fake candles? Probably
I think they're real.
Probably candles. Handmade from
they're handmade.
The bees that they catch out back.
The bees they catch.
That reminded me of something I wanted to talk about.
Oh.
It's completely disconnected, but I'll just throw it in here. There's a brilliant movie called Mr. Holmes.
You're just totally going to go a different direction.
Yeah,
okay.
This is completely down the rabbit hole. It's not going to be useful at all.
Oh, great.
But there's a brilliant movie called Mr. Holmes. I think it's been on Netflix. I think I saw it before it was on Netflix. But it stars Stuart McCullen as an elderly Sherlock Holmes, who is referenced in this episode, of course, because Data liked Sherlock Holmes. who's sort of retired in a very similar sort of position as Picard, except for he's got degenerative mental disease, just like Picard.
Oh, yes.
But he's losing his mind. He's losing his memory, and he's sort of deconstructing himself and trying to find who it is. And it's absolutely
I love that
great movie.
concept. Yeah,
it's brilliant, and there's a lot of sort of parallels or interesting ways that they could have done things.
We
better.
forget that. My God, we forget that about Picard too. He's also got this degenerative disease. Who knows how that's affecting his understanding of people and his connection to who he is.
That's a good point.
Huh. Okay. So
that's a really good point. Anyway, so
candles. Here's more candles. It definitely sets a cool atmosphere, but I was like, wow, there's a lot of candles. That's a lot of candles. Was there any other thing we want to talk about at the table, or is this just kind of...
Well, quite a lot happens here, because this is sort of the point where...
oh, yes.
She finally gives in and says...
Will you trust him?
She gives up the information that Narek, as soon as Narek learned about it, was like, you're not real, I'm going to kill you now.
Yeah.
So her actually even saying that at all to Picard
because she wanted to hide
big show
it.
of trust.
And even the idea of how the information came out, how it was this trick that he played, and how she was having these dreams, and she looked up and saw the red planets. And of course, they come to the conclusion, okay, we need to figure out where the planet is that has red moons, and lightning. And suddenly...
Picard's like, you can trust me.
Yeah, he says, sense my heart rate, look at my pupil dilation, maybe my breathing. So
which is something Data could do.
I was just going to say...
sometimes do the Troy empathy
Yeah,
thing
so they were the few things that Data would
them.
often do, especially sometimes maybe when playing poker. And I know Steve, you'll probably remember saying this, Steve. Steve was always like, there were so many people on the Enterprise that could do the same thing Troy could do, like in different ways. Like Geordi could also tell when people were lying with his visor often. And, Data could do it, and Troy could do it. But anyway, so in this moment, Picard's kind of using that to say, I know that you can... It's almost like she's learning, too, what she can do as an android.
Right.
So he's like, I know you can look at my pupil dilation, my breathing, my heart rate. Please look at those things and tell that I'm trustworthy. And she says, well, I can tell that you think you're telling the truth, which, again, she's still not quite there. But anyway, yeah, she gives up some information about the planet. They say we need to find it. And then Kestra says...
so Kestra takes out her, I think, a computer or a communicator, and she basically finds where the planet is. I didn't note the name of the planet, but it was a planet that didn't... Oh, it was a planet that didn't particularly have a name. It had a solar system.
It's a number,
name,
not a name.
But it was a number. She says something about, I asked Captain Crandall.
She made mention about another captain that she knew in the beginning of the episode.
Yes, or in the beginning of the scene. When they come to sit down, they're all talking about this other Captain Crandall, who's like incompetent at a captain. And Riker's like, he can't even fly a ship. And he's like, no, and she seems to think he's a good ship. I think that's Captain Crandall. It's all said very quickly. And I watched it twice and didn't completely get it.
The third time.
But either way, I don't know, we're jumping ahead, but basically the episode ends with them beaming back up to the main ship with Rios. So I don't know where Captain Crandall is going to come in. It's not like they needed Captain Crandall to take them to Captain Rios. So I don't know if that's a point or what the heck going on, or if... And I think it's not like this is information... The information about this planet, it sounds like Risso and Narek already figured out where that planet was.
Oh, Steve has an idea.
They had the information. So it's not like they need to come to this planet and like get this information out of the Riker family. So
Steve thinks that's maybe just her name for her tablet, imaginary friend. Maybe not.
Right.
It's
possible,
possible, right?
We didn't touch on is that starting with, I guess, Thad, so it would be Kestra's older brother who would
have been just turning 18, they mentioned.
Yeah, but would have died a few years ago. He was a very imaginative boy who invented several languages, taught her in imaginary worlds. And we sort of touched on that with the drawings that we got a quick shot of. And I remember that map you pointed out? That must be related to the mythology. So she's a girl that's clearly, sort of in her own imaginary world.
Absolutely. So maybe this Captain
Which again
Crandall.
I thought it was a great character just for Soji to meet at that point.
Yeah, giving the parallel between Kestra trying to figure out who she is, Soji trying to figure out who she is. You could tell they immediately almost connected like best friends. And then you have the scene where Soji has to leave and she's like, why do you have to leave? Scene, but did it get then to the stuff yet with explaining how he kind of created, he never had his own planet, Thad?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We touched on that a few times. He never had his own planet, but in the end, the planet that they ended up on, he sort of thought was home.
He could basically discover his own home.
That was in that scene with the overeating the pizza too. They talk a little bit about how they're going. She has a home world now. They're going to go to her own world.
And she says, yes, I have. Yeah. So that's kind of, again, that story being used to help Soji find out her identity, or maybe even realize that it's okay to not know right now, that she'll find out what home is. And yeah, she says to Picard, "I want to go home," and he's like, "Yeah, that's what we're gonna do." Anyway, okay,
very much. But the next scene cuts back to a secret. So Rios takes Agnes to talk to her one-on-one, and he's got a theory about what's going on. So all along the scene, Narek has been chasing him in that Snakehead's scout ship, and they haven't been able to lose him. Right. They've had these like strategies of like warping out and then leaving.
But he keeps finding them again.
He keeps finding them again.
And it keeps cutting to him, and he looks like more evil than ever.
Yeah, he's like...
Narek just has like his head down. Yeah, he kind of has this like... And he's playing with this cube thing, and he's just like, "I'm in pursuit, I'm going to kill." Which is really weird, because his character certainly took a very quick turn from being this empathetic, caring... Which I like that.
A weirdly caring guy. Like, he was always like weird.
Right, but I kind of like that, because I know we had this thing where we were like, we hope this doesn't happen. Or it was like our 9 hopes for season 1 or something. And one of them was like, we don't want to... Well, I would prefer not to see this be a love thing where Narek all of a sudden tries to defend her because he's fallen in love, and they completely didn't do that.
No, he's like... No, it seems that was a completely a front.
I mean, they might
actually maybe fits the character. I still think there's going to be... There's some unresolution between the two characters that they need to run into each other again. Yeah, but anyway, so Rios thinks, hey, maybe it's Raffi who's she's been acting weird. You think she has a tracker attached to her somehow?
Right. So this moment was so funny.
It's kind of a silly scene.
It's like the what's the irony when characters know something that the
pathetic irony?
Pathetic maybe. Where we know something that the character doesn't know, and we're going, "Oh, come on, Rios, it's right in front of you." He's like, "I think there might be a tracker." And we're like, "Oh, yeah, there is." And
it must be on.
It must be on Raffi, the character that I've known longer than you, because she's acting weird, but we have a reason why she's acting weird. And yet here's Agnes crying for no reason, vomiting, freaking out, but it's not her. Anyway, it was kind of funny.
Yeah, it was quite silly. Anyways, so, but then he leaves to go see that they've been found out again, and then she injects herself with some neurotoxin that could be dangerous. That puts her into, and we learn about in the next scene, puts her into a coma. But I think it implies it turns off somehow the tracker thing that she ate 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, that's the idea there. So she's certainly having second thoughts. I wish she had these second thoughts before she killed her ex-lover. But anyway, so now she's suddenly being like, maybe I don't want to like be tracked and be a part of like them.
But also presumably letting this Romulan scout ship that's probably coming to do harm to them. She hasn't been brainwashed. Some sort of motivation was given to her that convinced her that she wants to kill Maddox, but not that she wants all of these people to be killed by Romulans. She's not crazy.
Oh, Mac thought Rios was playing Agnes with Raffi, but next scene smashed that theory. So
yeah, no,
that would have made sense.
That would have been better.
Yeah, like I kind of had that thought.
Rios' character a lot better too, because they portray Rios as a savvy, smart, like streetwise guy.
Yeah,
with a feather in his cap.
Right, but anyway, so then finally the EMH is.
Yeah, the EMH finally shows up.
Finally shows up. My God, like what's wrong with this EMH?
Yeah, because before he was showing up just when she was like a little nervous twice, and then in this episode she's been freaking out crying, freaking out left and right, and he hasn't been showing up for the.
Right, and then finally, and the thing is, she lays on the floor for quite a bit first, starts frothing at the mouth, whatever, having a seizure. Suddenly he's like, and he seems, when he shows up too, it looks like he's just been napping and reading a book. Like he's just kind of like, state the, what is the nature of your, oh gosh, what's happening? It's like, well, if you show up, there's going to be a medical emergency.
Up until this point, we were sort of speculating that he must have been disabled by Agnes. Because he knew how Agnes killed Maddox, because that's still what happened.
Yeah, he has a bad, because and here's the thing, because this EMH, like we're obviously basing some of what he does and how he acts around the Voyager EMH, who became like he wasn't just an EMH that like lost his memory every time he shut off and didn't get to know the characters and didn't get he had his own personality.
Is that he pushed beyond the EMH base program?
Oh, he certainly, but even in the beginning, Kes would always be like, don't you want to fall in love?
Don't you want to have a name?
But anyway, so yeah, he's back, EMH.
Oh, there's a shot.
There's evil guy with his, look at the way he's looking.
He's even got like a joystick.
Yeah, it's like a little like controller for an old video game for shooting helicopters or something. So yeah, he's got his toy on the left. He's in hot pursuit. Okay, this was the running through the ship.
Yeah, where he finds out Agnes is passed out because the EMH is like, oh, she's in coma. But what I thought was interesting is the first time we sort of get a tracking shot of going from the bridge of the ship right down. He runs down the stairs into this sort of central place, and into the sick bay. So it sort of spatially showed what was going on with the ship.
Because we talked about the shape of the ship before.
It's been super defined yet. But.
Yeah, and I still think, this is such a little gripe, and it's not even really a gripe, but it seems like from the outside, the ship is much smaller than on the inside. But anyway, that's not a big deal. So he runs downstairs because the EMH says, "Oh, you might want to get down here, Rios. Agnes is now in a coma." So it's like, oh, okay.
And I think that's the end, basically, of the scenes on the ship. Other than when he goes and says, like, he's going to beam up Picard.
Yeah, so to kind of like recap that, like Agnes is assumingly trying to get rid of the tracker. Narek is still on their tail because they can't get rid of him because of the tracker.
No, but I think, but in the next scene, we find out in the next morning at least.
He finally can't keep.
He got away from Narek.
Right, yeah, they finally got away from Narek.
Of the neurotoxin she took.
Right.
And we don't know what happened to her yet.
Right. She's in a coma.
So this is the next morning. They're drinking some, I assume, Earl Grey.
I loved this. So like, I immediately said, maybe this is just like being like a longtime Star Trek fan, but like, why can't I go for a walk with Picard and Riker? I want to be there with them, walking with tea next to a lake. It just looks like so beautiful, and they're just reflecting. And then of course this location. Steve, tell me if you thought this, but I thought this kind of looked like a scene from like The Shire. I don't know. Like, and because I know that Patrick Stewart almost got cast as Gandalf, and maybe this is just like a weird thing that goes on in my head because I love Lord of the Rings and Star Trek. I'm just like, to me it felt a little bit like a scene in The Shire, and Picard is Gandalf. What do you think of that, Tim?
I don't know if it visually felt like The Shire, but it emotionally felt like home. Like The Shire is very much home. So I think emotionally you're right.
And this emotionally had me because after all this time, seeing Picard and Riker just like sit on a bench and kind of like talk to each other, especially in a moment of like stress. But, Picard's kind of saying, like, Riker says, "I've been through a lot with you." And Picard's saying, like, "Thanks for not talking me out of it." And he was like, "Trust me, I knew there was no point." It's like old friends, really, truly old friends. Like, that's the thing. I think Patrick Stewart and Jonathan Frakes, they all on this cast really got along really well and enjoyed working together. It wasn't like the original series where you got like George Takei and like
William Shatner.
Famously
doesn't get along well with other people.
Yeah.
And then,
Buckleberry Ferry Park. Steve, he said, "I think I saw Buckleberry Ferry Park there." That's what I'm saying, Steve. You get it.
So it's the morning too with Soji and Kestra. Kestra drew a nice little picture.
It's really quite good.
It's pretty good.
And the three-way hug and kiss.
There's a three-way hug.
I'm going to start doing this with all my friends. Be prepared, Tim. It's only if there's three of us, though, together. So also be prepared, Steve, or anyone else that's a friend of mine. I want to do the three-way hug and kiss.
And there's a nice moment. And then Kestra runs up and sort of has a hug with Soji.
And this is after Kestra says, "I'm going to miss you. I'm sad you're leaving."
And she hands him the compass. But
it's a broken compass.
It's a broken compass, of course. So it's
a
great symbol of like finding your way and like ethical goal. Like
the compass is so.
We've definitely had broken compasses and other stuff before.
Sure,
it's a great.
Well, I think I gave you one for your 16th birthday, didn't I? I said, "Find your way, Tim."
Yes.
What happened to that compass?
And then
the beaming.
Then they beam up.
The transporting. What do you think of the transporting? How it looks in this series? It's a little different.
And then, then the scenes. I had one more scene from where they walk away. And then it pans up to the interesting mountain.
So, if you're a geologist and you're watching this, can someone explain to me this mountain range? It looks like it has a handle.
3 huge moons. It looks super awesome too.
Yeah, it's cool.
You know what? I bet.
Oh, it's a bridge, maybe.
Maybe they're on a moon.
Okay.
And that's why the mountain frames, because maybe they're on a moon, because moons can have atmospheres and stuff. And there's a bunch of moons, because it looks like all those moons are really big compared to the planet. I don't know, but no, I think they said it was a planet, because the name of the planet was Nepenthe.
Yeah, I think it's a planet, but there's lots of moons. And anyway, this mountain range, I don't know how that would naturally form, so maybe this is more Lord of the Rings than we think. There's some dwarves on this planet chiseling away at mountains.
Anyway, but that's how the episode ends.
So it's brilliant how they've grown Riker without having to exposition. I have never seen him interact as an equal with Picard before. Here he clearly is equal. That's Mac Murray.
Even sort of wiser.
Mm-hmm.
And sort of like
he's
more on point about where you need to go next.
And I wonder if part of that is because, and Riker knows this, Picard is suffering from this degenerative disease. he's almost taking on. It's almost like when the child becomes the father because the father becomes more elderly and frail.
And that's sort of the classical sort of like hero's journey arc.
Mm-hmm.
He's sort of playing the role that you'd think of Picard or a Gandalf would usually play, like the
Yes,
elder, the old man who sort of helps them on their way.
Yes, the sage.
But overall, I thought everything on the planet
I
thought was
Mac.
great. I think it was the best writing and some of the best acting.
It was subtle. A lot of that was
Everything
subtle.
was super subtle.
Yeah.
And they were dealing, like you were saying earlier, tons of really heavy sort of like trauma, all these sort of identity and authenticity issues that they dealt with. A couple of times they were maybe a little heavy-hammered, a little heavy-handed.
Yeah, there's a few moments,
things, but I thought it was great. I really liked the use of a lot of the symbolism with like the tomato and the real, and what is real, and sort of the contrast with the girl
finding home,
who's sort of finding her home, and the girl who's sort of living in these imaginary world of these imaginary languages,
also
constructed languages, and the way kids sort of find their identities has to do with like creating fantasy worlds and the imagination and things like that. And so just dealing with that and the constructed languages to me was sort of really spot on for where that character was at that time.
Yeah, I like that. I also think even the imagery in the beginning when they get to the planet and the child shows up, it reminded me a little bit of like the Lost Boys from, of course, referenced in the last episode ever of TNG, Second Star to the Right, Straight On Till the Morning. So there's clearly some connection to even like Never Never Land and the idea of growing up, of being old, of losing your youth. Like there's a lot of themes going on. And I honestly, I actually really liked how they did a lot of it. I mean,
I like the family. I like where Riker and Troy are now. It makes sense for the character.
But to be honest, I'm starting to also get to know the new like people like Rios and Raffi, and like I guess so. I'm starting to learn a little more about them. I'm liking that stuff more, and I guess that's the process of a new show, right? You start to learn to get to know the characters. You get to know what their traits are like, and it's growing on me for sure.
Yeah, to be honest, the entire plot back on the ship was entirely just around Agnes being physically ill over what she's been going through, which I guess actually really makes sense for where that character is now. I'm not convinced yet about her motivation.
The motivation was a little...
Well, again, maybe we get more at the start of the next
But
episode.
I wonder if that's more of an issue with pacing than it is with... Like, they just couldn't show this really long mind meld and her going super in-depth with this stuff. They just had to do it quick and kind of be like, this is what happened. Maybe we'll see that later in another flashback, like how in-depth it really went with her. I don't know. Or maybe even these flashbacks after the mind meld happened, maybe the next subsequent like 3-4 days, it built in her mind of like seeing more images of this. So we don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, because we've had similar things. There was an episode of Voyager where there's this guy who was an ex-Maquis who was basically sort of a serial killer who started killing people. They captured, they figured out who it was and arrested him like at the start of the episode.
Let's finish this off.
But then for most of the episode, it was about Tuvok, who early on it's just like, I don't get it. How can someone be
have no motivation for killing?
And he does a mind meld with them, and then he sort of has to deal with that for the rest of the episode.
Of that, yeah.
And like for the whole episode, of course, Neelix being super annoying, and he's just like,
making him more murderous,
which is something you'd like. But anyway, the entire episode was kind of like the lingering effects of what a mind meld would do, because you're sharing emotions and sharing
it goes both
ways.
ways. Yeah, mind melds aren't just a one-way street.
But to use it just sort of as a way of communicating a plot motivation, felt really dirty. Like I'm not
it almost felt like the writers were like, "Here's a tool we could use for the plot. Let's all writers remember." People can do mind melds, and put ideas into other people's minds. And they were like, "Oh, damn! Have they used that yet to like motivate someone to do something weird?" No, let's try it. So yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of that, but we'll see where that goes.
Well, yeah, like I said, I'm okay with at least what was going on the ship with her character doing that development, and there was a longer episode too, so they let all that development happen. I was, like we talked in the start of the episode, I was less happy with what was going on with Hugh and stuff. It made a lot less sense. There's a lot more of the weird scenes with Risso, where she's still in a music video for some reason. And just the three sort of scenes, they didn't connect or make any sort of logical sense, really. Like where they were. Elmo would pop up, and then they'd disappear, then they'd be alone, and then she'd be there again, and it just... But the main arc of this episode, I think, was probably my favorite episode. Yeah, and I mean, I like where they're going. I like dealing with these themes, and yeah, I think you're right. Maybe Picard being so antisocial or whatever, so unempathetic to her,
can make sense with
makes sense
with him not knowing who he
his
is.
disease and him being lost about who he is.
He
in a
certainly
lot of
was
ways,
used to being in charge and having everyone trust him, implicitly trust him. His bridge
that's a
crew
good point.
immediately would be like, yes, Picard said so.
He never has to deal with someone challenging him on that ground as a captain, and everyone's your...
Yeah, that could be really interesting to see where that goes with him. To really like put him in a new light where like he actually he can grow also, which is cool.
So Soji needs to sort of find her identity and who she is, and she might at this planet. But Picard also needs to find his identity, and maybe Soji helps them. And that was something that I think was stressed on by something that Kestra said about how like when they had woken up, said something about like Picard could be like your
father if you let him.
Or your family. Could be there for you, and then you could be there for him.
Yes. Yeah.
And that sort of seemed very insightful.
And I think I said something like maybe episode 10 they'll... But regardless of what episode, like I'm not worried, but I do like... I don't know. I try to view this too sometimes with like, how would I feel about this if I wasn't a huge TNG fan? If I didn't already know the relationship between Picard and Data, would I still just really want that relationship to build between Soji and Picard just because of Data? I don't know if I'd feel the same way about it. I would love to know from someone who hasn't watched Star Trek before what they think of this show. But to me... The prospect of like them becoming closer and Soji because she's so vulnerable, and really to be honest Picard is really vulnerable, like if they could learn to trust each other, which I'm sure they will and I hope they will, that could be a really cool, great character arc and like a beautiful thing to see.
The way they talked in this episode, there's two sort of pretty big implications. One is they seemed to pretty solidly set out that she was created 3 years ago, and that all of her memories were created.
That light. Sorry, I didn't realize that light was like right there.
Lighting on my hairs on my arm.
I'm gonna move it a little bit. There we go. Okay.
And the second thing is they talked about her throughout this episode as if she was Data's daughter, and definitely connected with Data, even though they've sort of made it clear that Data couldn't have created her. Remember, I had that very early on, that theory that how Data maybe really initially created her, then just Maddox sort of finished her off or finished or Data at least created all the specs and the blueprint for her, and and Maddox finished it off. And then there was that sort of hand-waving thing that Agnes did in the second episode. It was like, no, it was definitely just Maddox. That makes perfect sense. Don't think about it anymore.
Don't think about it.
But the way they're talking about her now was very much like she was Data's daughter. And there was a lot of connections. Like Riker right away recognized her as being Data's daughter.
Yeah.
And I think Troy basically did too. And I think even Kestra seemed to.
Yeah, she seemed to really know Data well, even though she'd never met him. She was like describing Data like someone who had really known Data.
Watched the TV
but
show.
She's like one of us. She's the audience.
Yeah, she was a very relatable. Again, like Jaban and Laros.
Yeah.
Anyway,
we
like those characters because initially they were portrayed as being identifiable as the viewers, the old fans.
Yeah.
And then Kestra, in some ways, Kestra's first interaction was like that too, where she was like, "Hey, you're kind of like," she named off as what's things about Data that we all sort of knew about Data. And
basically, she could have just said like, Data was the greatest, right? And the audience.
Oh, there was one line too where did I write that down? Oh yeah, where Kestra a couple times calls Picard the greatest Starfleet captain ever.
Yeah.
And then she mentions that. And
Riker's like, I wouldn't have said that. Like, who said that? Who told you that? But like,
he's like, it was you. And he's like, oh, I must have been drinking.
I must have been drunk drinking. Yeah, he says that literally. Okay, so that's great.
So I think this was one of our longest episodes.
Yeah,
but also it was the longest. Folks. It was the longest actual episode.
I think I had a lot
to talk about. And again, I think I'm really happy this being my favorite episode. The previous episode where it sort of actually had action and resolved some stuff, we were all sort of like, finally, that's great. It was a fun episode to watch. But this episode to me actually dealt with stuff. It was like I keep saying, it was a lot more subtle, better writing, dealt with these themes a lot better. The themes that I've really, because all the themes that they've been touching on this show, I think are brilliant, are great. They're great for his character.
True.
And they're finally doing some of that.
Yeah, no, I really like it. This episode, at least for sure, is like a real great direction coming from TNG, coming from the movies, and seeing Picard here. Like it really makes sense. I love it. Excited to see the next episode. Thank you, everyone, for watching. I think we said what we wanted to say. So we're going to do another live stream next Thursday after episode 8. We're almost to the end of the season. It's crazy. It's gone really fast. And then we're going to keep kind of doing content. I thought it has, Anyway, we're going to keep doing content and probably other videos too, aside from the live streams. So yeah, let us know what you think. Comment. Thanks for the comments from everyone already. If you want to like and subscribe, all the stuff YouTube people say, I don't know.
Do those things.
Do the things. Cool. I'm detecting a detective.
Sherlock Holmes.
Sherlock Holmes. Reference to it earlier in the episode. Oh, yeah, and thanks for watching, and I hope we kept you engaged. I gotta say it.
All right, we're
didn't
gonna
choke
end
on the
one.
T this time, so that's good.
Oh, I forgot about that. So we're gonna end. We're not gonna cut this off too early. We're gonna end this correctly this time.
Oh, we're gonna end it correctly.
And we're gonna cut to our little thing.
There it is.